Okay, here we go. Good afternoon and welcome to our second Saturday seminar series. I'm Susan Jones, and here with me today is Ed Horvat at the Animas Museum. We're inside today. It's kind of a beautiful, warm day here in Durango, but we're going to do the best we can do today. You might know Ed. If you grew up here in Durango, Ed was a product of St. Columba's School, but please don't blame the nuns for this book. You also might know Ed if you live here today and you follow his feature article in the Durango Herald on the weekend edition, and the West was history. And he's going to talk a little bit more about his story today, here in a minute. But we're celebrating the publication this week of Ed's book on La Plata County. Tells the story of La Plata County through images that are in the collection here at the Animas Museum. And it's part of Arcadia Publishing's Images of America series that consists of over 200 images that tell the story of La Plata County. To me, it seems like yesterday that Donna Arendt, you might know her, Durango residents. She was the assistant director at the Durango Public Library. She called the museum one day and she was looking to see if we could help Arcadia. And we had somebody who could take on the project of writing this book about La Plata County. It seems like yesterday, but I think it was actually like 2 years ago. So it's taken a while to get this all together. And I know Ed's going to talk a lot about that as well. I want to do shout out to the Durango Public Library and librarian Nancy Henry for believing in us and on Ed and believing that we could do this book. He'd been wanting to do a similar book, but the Arcadia project just sounded like a perfect fit. So here we are. The book is available. We have some copies downstairs for sale at $24.99 plus tax. If we run out, you can get a copy at Maria's, and they even ship because we're not able to ship. Or you can get a copy on Arcadia's website, and worst comes to worst, on Amazon.com. And we'll put a link to all those alternatives in the show notes that you will get tomorrow. But before we get started, I want to do some quick Zoom housekeeping as usual. We are using Zoom's webinar feature, which means that you're all muted and your videos are all off. At the bottom of your screen, and you might need to mouse down a little bit to see it, you'll see there are some icons. To minimize distractions today, we have disabled the chat function. But if you have an immediate issue or question, please click on the Q&A icon, and I will be monitoring that as Ed speaking. And at the end of the talk, so hold any questions that you have for the end, we'll open up. So you can either type your questions into the Q&A and I'll get them to Ed and we'll answer them live, or you can raise your little hand and we'll let you unmute yourself and you can ask the question in person. So if you're here at the museum today, please hold your questions. And once we handle all the online questions, we'll go downstairs and answer any questions in person, and Ed will be glad to sign books. We have a drone set up for him all ready to go to do that. So we'll post any questions and answers in the show notes so nobody will miss anything. This session is being recorded, and you will receive an email in 24 hours with a link to the recording and any other links that we talk about. And with that, here's Ed.
Thank you, Susan. That was a very nice introduction. And that concludes our program for today. Now, I really appreciate I really appreciate everybody coming and listening and being on this Zoom. It means a lot to me to see people I know and friends and people I don't know that cared enough to watch this Zoom webinar. And I really do appreciate it. And I think what I'll do is kind of give you some of my background, tell you a little bit about my family history and my history in Durango and La Plata County, and then tell you a little bit about the history of how this book came to be for me and what I had to do to produce this book. And then if anybody's still awake after all that, I have some really good pictures to show you. And literally none of them, except maybe one or two, came out of the book. I have some good pictures that I just couldn't use. And if I figured, well, I don't need to show you pictures from the book. You can get the book and read it, and it'll explain everything. So I'll show you some different ones that I hope you'll like. So anyway, I was born in Durango, 1954. My grandparents, I think the book had it wrong, but my grandparents all came between 1909 and 1915, all four of them. So in that 6-year period, all my grandparents were here. And so I have some pretty deep roots to La Plata County. And my maternal grandfather came from Nebraska. His mother died when he was like 4. She died in childbirth, and his dad died before he was even a teenager, and he came out with a couple uncles who were homesteading in the county. And he came as a 16-year-old, and then he went to World War I and came back from World War I and homesteaded a square mile out by La Plata. And some of that property is still in my family. My fraternal grandfather and grandmother came from Slovenia. They first went to Leadville, and then my grandfather came to work in the smelter, which so many people around the early 1900s did. The smelter was one of the major employers. But the story of how my maternal grandfather came to the United States is a little bit interesting. I have a cousin, Patrick, that lives in California. He's my oldest cousin. He was the firstborn of my grandparents' grandchildren. And I was talking to him not that long ago. And he said the story his mother told him is my grandfather went to Slovenia, to Germany, got on a ship, and was supposed to get off at the port of New Orleans. That had a big immigration center. And for whatever reason, he didn't get off in New Orleans. He went clear to Mexico City. And he didn't speak any Spanish, but probably didn't make any difference because he didn't speak any English either. And he ended up having to go all the way back to England, and then came back across to Ellis Island. And we know he did land in Ellis Island eventually. We have the records, but we think that's a true story. My wife would tell you it's absolutely true. It's a Horvat. Anytime we travel and there's a wrong way to go, I go out of my way to go the wrong way and end up in the wrong place. So it probably is true. But that my grandfather eventually made it here about 1909, I think, or 1910. And so by that time, all my grandparents were here. My mom and dad were both born in the county, both in Durango. And then I was born and grew up half a block from Anima School. And I never got to go to Anima School. It's kind of a disappointment because it would have been so convenient. I remember the teachers coming out and ringing that big bell. There was no electronic bells here ever, I don't think. And I watched them ring it, but it would have been very convenient to live here or to go to school here, but I just didn't. I went to St. Columba and met some childhood friends that 64 years ago, they're still my friends. Joe Murphy, Ron Royce, Charlie D. Ferdinando, and we're still buddies after all those years. So I don't regret going to St. Columba, of course. But I had a really good friend growing up. His name's Matt Miller, and his parents built and operated the Spanish Trails Motel. And when I tell people that was the nicest motel in town back in the day, a lot of people don't believe that, but it really was. And that's where he grew up. And he told me this story about going to Anima School in the 60s. He said, you know, Ed, I went there for 5 years, and it was a 6th grade. They had 6 grades, but when I was ready for the 6th grade, my last year I was going to be there. We were going to be the big kids on campus, kind of run the show. They closed the school, and they bused me to the inner city, Needham. And it's funny, but I think that's still, to this day, kind of bothers him. He didn't get his all 6 years in at Anima School. But Matt was, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but Matt's quite an interesting guy. He was really a good student. He was accepted to Harvard, didn't go there because he wanted to play football at a Division I school, went to the University of Colorado. He was an All-American. Wanted to go into engineering, and the coaches said, no, you can't. You're here to play football. You're not going to be an engineer. So he said, okay, I'll be a geology major. So he did that, and was, what I understand, he was the first football player ever to graduate in 4 years with a science degree. But he did that, and he got drafted by the Cleveland Browns. He played 6 years of professional football, but he'd come home on off season and go back to school. And he finally got his engineering degree from Colorado School of Mines. And then he went to Georgia Tech and got his master's and a PhD in engineering. And now he is a full professor in the Sibley, the Sibley School of Engineering and mechanical and aerospace engineering at Cornell, Ivy League, Cornell. So anyway, that I was talking to him about it, and I said, Matt, it's too bad you didn't get that last year of school of Indianapolis, because you could have really done something, could have made something out of your life. But be it as it may, I think he did okay. But that's my story on the Animus School, and I think everybody that went here really liked going to the Animus School. Anyway, I graduated from Durango High School. I went to Fort Lewis, took some history classes, but didn't major in history, majored in biology. Had Reese Kelly and Tom Eckenrode. Never took a class from Dwayne Smith. Probably just as well, I might have become a history major, and then history would be more of a chore or a job for me today than it just a fun kind of hobby and passion in my retirement. So I had a couple friends, Ron Royce and Mike Burvey, who were pre-med students, and they were biology majors. And they said, Ed, you need to get a job at Mercy Hospital, be a orderly and you going on the ambulance. But they said, really, the reason you need to get a job here is there are so many single nurses here, and you cannot believe it. And so I thought, okay, I'll go apply. And Carl Graham gave me a job, and I never think things out very, very well. I forgot my mom was a head nurse and medical floor there, and it kind of cramped my style. And I don't know if I steered away from the nurses or they steered away from me, but never quite worked out. But I did meet my wife in the lab. And so that was my future wife, Sue, was a med tech. And so I met her there. So that was good. And from Mercy, I went to Farmington because I wanted to go to paramedic school. And Mercy at that time did not have paramedic level service. And I went to UNM, paramedic school at UNM, and worked at Farmington San Juan Regional Medical Center in the EMS department. And then 10 years later, while I was still working full time, I went to nursing school at San Juan College and got my RN, and I moonlighted there and did that. And eventually, when you work somewhere long enough, they kind of keep moving you up. And in 2003, my boss, Larry Markham, who hired me and mentored me in EMS for many years, took the job at San Juan County Fire Department chief. He was the fire chief, and I applied and got the job as the director of the ambulance service for San Juan County. It was run by the hospital, and I did that for the last 13 years of my career. But I had a friend, Charlie Todd, and I always do what my friends suggest to me. And he said, Ed, now that you're the director, you really need to join Rotary. And I said, oh, really? He said, yeah, they do a lot of good things, but because our ambulance service was funded by the county and the three cities, Aztec, Bloomfield, and Farmington, he said it's really be good for me to meet the guys in Rotary, because most of them were city councilmen, and some of them were city councilmen, county commissioners, city managers, county manager, and I got to know a lot of people that were influential for the ambulance service, and that was good. But where I'm going here is, once I was in Rotary, every year, the San Juan County, New Mexico Historical Society, the group would come and talk to Rotary, and they would produce a little booklet every year on some different facet of San Juan County history. And they would come, and it was a booklet, not unlike History La Plata, but they would actually sell it to make money to fund themselves. But I absolutely loved their talks, and I bought their books and I read them. And one of them was about oil and gas industry down there, the history, and then the orchards and stuff that used to be down there before oil and gas came in, and then different aspects of history. I really liked it, and I just thought that was so interesting, and it kind of piqued my interest in local history. So in 2016, I retired from San Juan Regional, and we had moved back to Durango. I had commuted for a year and a half or so, and I retired back to Durango, not where I grew up, but down the street where my grandparents had some property, and that's where I live today. But it was really convenient for me to come into the museum, and Charlie DiFernando was on the museum board at that time. And so it just kind of made sense with my interest in local history to come into the museum and kind of help out and do what I could. So I also at the same time, my son was living in Colorado Springs, and I'd go up there to see him and his wife and my grandchild. And I would buy the Colorado Springs Gazette, and on the back page was a historical picture. And I loved it. I would try to be there on the weekends just so I could get the newspaper and read and see what picture they put in. So then around it was 2019, I think the Herald was just not doing anything with their End of West's history feature. They hadn't changed the picture on it online for months. They hadn't put anything in, and they were kind of looking for something. And they reached out to the museum, and I think it was Amber Lark, who was working here then, mentioned it to me. I said, "Oh, I'll go talk to him. I'll go talk to him." So I went down and met with the gal at the Herald who's gone. I can't remember her name. And her first thing was, "Oh, well, we're interested. We can't pay you." I go, "No, that's fine. I don't want to be paid. In fact, it's better that I'm not. That way I have a lot more, feel like I have a lot more freedom." But I told her, "Yeah, I'll find a picture at the museum and write a caption and put it in." And I don't know if she really trusted me to follow through very well. She says, "Okay, send me 6 of them to start with." So I did it. And so I started that in April of 2019, and I've been doing it now over 5 years. I can't believe it. The one that comes out tomorrow will be like 280 that I've done. And not everyone is from the museum. When I started out, I was kind of picking them from a few different places, but the last 4.5 years, every one of them has been a museum picture. So that's that story. Then Susan sent me the thread that was going back between her and the library and Arcadia Publishing. Arcadia was looking for somebody to do another book about our county. And they have this series called Images of America. And they've been doing it. I did a little research. They've been doing it since 1994. And they really have it down. They know it's all local history and it's historic photos. And apparently it's been a good business for them, because they've done over 5,000 of these books, all local history. They get local people to write them and find the pictures. In fact, there's been like 5 of them already, just kind of about La Plata County. There was one about Bayfield and Pine River Valley that was done in 2002. And then there's one, Rails Around Durango, by a guy named Alan Lewis, in 2006. Then Fred Wildfang did one specifically on Durango, another one on the San Juan Skyway, which is the circle trip around Durango, Silverton, Ouray, Telluride, Cortez. That had a lot of La Plata County stuff in it. And then they did another one that actually wasn't part of the Images of America series. It was about postcards, just postcard pictures just of Durango. And back in the day, postcards were like the email of what we have today. People buy them you could buy them for nothing almost, and for 1 cent you could send them around. And anybody had a picture, they could put it on a postcard. And so there's the Center for Southwest Studies has a huge collection. Animas Museum has a big collection, and so they did a book on that. So, and the reason I tell you about these other books is part of Arcadia's thing is I couldn't use any of those pictures that were in previous books. And it'd be easier to tell you where there's not a book than where there are, because there's been books of Pagosa, of course, Cortez, Chimney Rock, Montrose, Grand Junction, Ouray, Telluride, Silverton, they've all had these books done. So it's like not a new thing, but anyway, Arcadia really thought La Plata County was ready for another one. And so Susan, I saw the thread that was going back and forth, and they really considered doing it in-house, but she was kind of not sure about it because she knew that a lot of pictures, the best pictures of the museum had been used and a lot of the stories had been told. But then I think they thought, yeah, maybe we can do it. And they thought they would do it in-house, and they and the logical person to do it in-house, because now he was an employee, was Charlie DiFernando. And so Charlie actually started looking at pictures and thinking about it and trying to figure out what it would take. And because he was working full-time, because the museum had so many other jobs for him, and there were some health things going on, not with Charlie necessarily, but around the museum, and there's building problems that they needed Charlie to help with. They just finally just said, yeah, we can't do this. It isn't going to work. And then I remember vividly coming in one day, and Susan said, there's those images of America by Arcadia. They're wanting somebody to write a book. And so it kind of piqued my interest, but every time Susan talked to me about it, she'd always say, it's okay to say no, Ed. It's okay to say no. And she knew something I didn't know, because I thought, oh, well, I do that. And the West is history of the Herald. How hard can it be? So I said, okay, I'll probably send me the information. I'll talk to Arcadia. And I had to supply him with a application and find some 10 pictures and captions, sample ones to send them, which I basically had from the Herald. And I thought, yeah, this won't be a problem. Oh my gosh, I'm such an idiot. It was way different than the Herald. I needed to provide like 220, or well, from 150 to 220 images. And I did 4.5 years of doing the Herald before I got to 220 images. So I knew there was going to be a deadline. I didn't really know what it was. And that was the other thing that kind of, I think, would have held Charlie up. I don't think working full time, anybody could have met that deadline. And it's too bad Charlie didn't do it, because it probably would have been a lot better book. But anyway, I agreed to do it. And I signed a contract March 1st of 2023 and started in on it. And it was a lot different than the Herald feature, a lot more work. The Herald, I can pretty much write what I want and say what I want, and be as long as I want, or short as I want, or whatever. But Arcadia had some really strict requirements. And for one thing, you can't just show a picture and say, yeah, here's 4 kids on a donkey somewhere in La Plata County. Or, yeah, here's some people in La Plata County just standing around. That doesn't work for these books. They really wanted to know who was in it, if you could find that out, when the picture was taken and where it was taken. And besides that, they wanted historical context. They wanted how that fit in the history of the county. So it was a huge challenge to meet their 7-month deadline to get all this. But I took it on, and I spent all last summer messing around doing this book. Took a lot of effort, but it wasn't unenjoyable at all. I actually enjoyed most of it, but it definitely felt like I was under a time constraint. And that one of the first things they did is they sent me a 28-page author's guideline. And so they've been doing this thing for 30 years. They have it down. They knew exactly what they want, when they want it from me, how they wanted it. And so the good thing, I never had to talk to them too much, because it was all right there. And besides all the captions and pictures, I had to write an introduction, which could have been 2, 3, or 4 pages. And I thought about how long an introduction I wanted to do. And when I read a book like this, I want to get to the pictures. I don't want to read a bunch of text and just to get to the pictures. I want to look at the pictures and of course read the caption. But so I wrote 3 pages of an introduction, and that was a little bit of a challenge, because I don't know, the history of La Plata. I wanted to write a good introduction that told what I wanted to say, but I didn't want it to be boring, but probably came out a little boring. But anyway, I did that, and I could write up to 1,800 words for that, and I did 1,700. So they made me track every word. I'll tell you about that later. I had to count every word that went into this book, and it was limited on how many pages. And they did say it could be 150 to 220 photographs, and I wanted to max it out. I did 220 because the museum has. I knew I was not going to have trouble finding pictures, but I also spent a lot of time looking at those other publications to make sure I wasn't copying them, because I didn't want to do that, and Arcadia didn't want me to repeat photos, so I didn't. So I started in on that book in, I guess it was April. Really got into it. I had my first deadline in April, and they had to have so many captions written, you had to give them so many images, and gosh, I had to have the introduction at some point. And in the back, there was the back page. You had to write a thing on the back page. You had to do acknowledgments. You had to do figure out how many chapters you're going to have, and then you had to do the table of contents. So I'm just kind of telling you what went into it is like way more than I had figured, but it worked out. And I spent all last summer. I got it done. My deadline was October 16th. I think I got it to them like the 1st of October. And that mean, I figured, well, they'll be sending me back stuff and all that. But it seemed to work out pretty good ultimately, because I didn't have to rewrite too much. There's like a lot of clarification that I had to do on things, but I got it done, and got it to the publisher, and they actually planned to publish it in April, and they called me and said, we got a lot on our plate. Do you mind if we move it to July? And I said, I don't care. So I don't have to do anything else. So I said, whatever. So that's why we're here in July, but it's originally planned to be published in April. So there's a lot of people have asked me and say, Ed, you've given the royalties to the museum. What's that about? And it's like, there's really 4 really good reasons why I wanted the museum to have the royalties. And we had a little bit of discussion, negotiation about things, about how the book would be done and what their role would be. But the first reason the museum really I wanted to have the royalties is every picture is from the museum. I didn't have to go to the Denver Public Library, the Library of Congress, the Center for Southwest Studies, the Colorado Historical Society, and try to find pictures. And they're out there. There's other pictures, but the museum had them. And they have the software where I could query the software to find pictures, because every picture that gets put in the archive gets a description. And that's a really good thing, but it's been going on for about 30 years, and different volunteers have done the description, and the description is supposed to say what the picture is, what it's about, but if they know when it was taken, where it was taken, who the people are, background, they put it in. But the fact is, we discovered that a lot of the volunteers were kind of taking wild guesses at some of the stuff. So, but anyway, all the pictures were available to me, and they're online, and it was just wonderful. It saved me a lot of work. Plus, the software, the software was really good to look with. And Susan Jones gave me free reign for all the photos and software. Now, there were some photos I couldn't use because of legal provenance, also some kind of ethical issues that I really couldn't use. But the museum has 13,000, or actually they have more than that. But when I started looking, they had 13,000, but I didn't look through 13,000 photos. I knew kind of what was in it, and I could query stuff. And a lot of the pictures, we don't even know who the people are, where they were taken, but they're in the archive. So really, when it came down to it, I had about 400 that I really looked closely at, that I could call 220 out of. And that worked really well. So that's one reason, made it really easy, that aspect. I wanted the museum to have the royalties. And it's not like the museum, well, I'll talk about that, but the other thing is that the Arcadia said, run this by a local historian, run your captures by a local historian. Well, that was easy. I would just send them to Charlie DiFerdinando. And you have to know something about Charlie in the Animas Museum. Nothing is considered historically accurate until Charlie DiFerdinando gives it his good housekeeping seal of approval. So he looked at everyone, and he found some things, typically errors that I had just assumed that who had ever described the picture had been correct on, and Charlie found mistakes. He also, even more importantly, he'd give me more background information. Because, oh yeah, I know that, and he'd tell me stuff about that picture or that history of the people in it, and that really helped me. I mean, Charlie was just unbelievably helpful and great. I don't know how this book would have turned out without him. So that was the set. Oh, and I also got to use the museum library for my research, because I did a lot of research. I had to look at things and find out family histories and put something in there that kind of made sense. So I used their library quite a bit. And then the third reason the museum deserves a lot is they have a volunteer named Larry Bollinger that is an expert on photos, and he's a video guy. He's an expert on fixing photos. And I got to tell you, a lot of these old pictures are so damaged. There's scratches, there's rips in the cracks in the paper, there's splotches, there's food, I don't know what's on, but just all kinds of stains. And we really wanted pictures that would look like, well, that's how it looked when they took the picture. That's how it looked when they printed the picture. And Larry was great on that. In fact, the Arcadia told me exactly how to scan in the pictures, and all of them had been scanned in, but I rescanned in out of 220. I bet I rescanned in 175 of them. I just wasn't satisfied with the scan, and they told me how they wanted it, what size, what resolution. I did that, and then Larry and I would look at them, and Arcadia said, after you do the scans, just send them to us. Don't alter them at all. Just send us, and our image editors will do it. I totally ignored that. Larry and I looked at every one of them and fixed everyone to make it good. Because I had more trust in Larry, and it's very time consuming, and it takes a lot of expertise to make pictures look good. You don't want to change them; you just want to make them look better. And Larry helped and did that, and it was fantastic what he did. If you look at the pictures in there, when I show pictures later, Susan just took them out of the archive and put them in the PowerPoint, and you're going to see what pictures look like before they get fixed, so to speak. And so anyway, I didn't have Arcadia turn down any of my pictures after Larry, and I did some of the fixing, but anything that was really took any expertise at all, Larry did. So that was good. So, and then the fourth reason the museum deserved the royalties, or why I wanted the museum to have them, because honestly, the museum needs the money more than I do. And that's a long story. And I won't even go into that, but I know the museum's money issues are big to make this into a really viable, good building that has some building issues. And I think it's like $6 million to get it up to where it really needs to be. And I figure they'll probably get maybe 5 million out of my book in royalties, and that'll only leave them 1 million. No, they'll probably get a couple $100 out of my book. But anyway, the museum can really use the money. So they deserve every bit of it. All right, so I'll get into my PowerPoint now. I think we're doing pretty good on time. So one thing I've had let's see, I've had a lot of comments on the cover, and I love that cover. I put it in the Herald. I liked it so much. It's it's definitely different. I get a lot of comments. I'm not sure everybody's perfectly happy about it, but I like it, and I've got 99% good positive feedback about the cover. It's just unique. It's different. It catches your eye. But it wasn't my first choice. I said they wanted 10, and I samples to pick from, and so I sent them 10, and but I had my favorite, and I said, now this is my favorite. This is one I think you really need to do. I like this one the best, and blah blah blah. And they sent back 5 of them, and my favorite didn't even make the first spot. So I was kind of disappointed. And I'll show you my favorite. And that one actually made the book because I liked it so much. I made sure it was in the book. But the 5 they sent back, this is one of them. Colorado ice cold storage. I think you look at that. I guess most people can guess. You can see Parents Peak in the background and kind of guess maybe where that one was. But really, it's at what's today is College and Narrow Gauge, the corner of College and Narrow Gauge streets on right across the street from the train depot and the General Palmer House. And that's what it looked like I had that written down. I can't remember forgot what year that was taken. This one I didn't put in the book, but it was taken, I think this was in around 1900. And I'm kind of wondering why I don't, 1902. 1902. But this is an interesting picture, but an interesting business because it's the first one to have ice in Durango. And they made I'm not the first one to have ice, the first one to make ice. And that was revolutionary. So they didn't have to go out in the winter and cut ice and store it all summer and deliver it to people. They could make ice. And this company did that. And it's a pretty good picture. They really wanted pictures that were clear, crisp, and it would look good on the cover. They made it, they wanted to leave the top open so they could put the title of the book on top and not interfere. And so that was one of the 5 they sent back. Oh gosh, Susan, what? Trying to get this to jump to the next PowerPoint slide. Susan's coming to fix it. May have timed out, but okay, that's it. I should know. Anyway, this is if you were standing about the same place, that's what it looks like today. The Durango Narrow Gauge Railroad offices are there, and there's a Mexican restaurant there on the west side of it. But that is the same building. It looks way different. Doesn't have the awning anymore, but it's the same building. Okay, so oh boy, I did it again. Oh, there, that's it. I think I got it. No, it wants to go, but apologize.
Yeah, just share.
Oh, share.
And then click in this. Oh, no. Hit share. Click the circle. So,
I gotta get, I got you. It's very touchy. Okay, now I know. Yeah, that's you know how it's computer software, things pop up and pop down. Something pops up and I think I'm clicking on one thing and I'm clicking on something else. This is another picture I considered. I sent them and it was one of the 5 top ones. This is taken outside the Kiva Theater. I think that's 800 block, isn't it? That's a block that burned in 1974. But this is an interesting photo taken exactly 6 months to the minute. Well, I don't know if the photo was taken to the minute, but the induction of men into the armed forces, Navy, Army, Marines, and I think the Coast Guard. They did an induction ceremony there exactly 6 months to the day after Pearl Harbor, and to the minute when they did the induction. I mean, the Americans were so upset with the Japanese Empire for Pearl Harbor. Man, they wanted to do something to show them. And so this is June 7th, 1942. So that's exactly 6 months later. That's a good picture. outside the Kiva. Most people that grew up here remember the Kiva Theater. This photo is another one they considered. This it's taken around 19. This one was taken around 1899, and this house, it still exists on 3rd Avenue. It's at 1361 3rd Avenue. It's the house just to the north of the Smiley Building on 3rd Avenue, and it's been there a long time. My family doctor lives there now, and they've been doing a lot of work on it. But it's really good house, and the people there, they know who some of the people are. There's a Mr. Campbell in the picture, and the family is the George Franklin family. So we knew a little bit about it. And I had a little bit of history at that, not history at this house, but one of my English teachers in high school, Mrs. Foster, lived there, and she was really pretty old. I'm not even sure why she's still teaching, but one day once she went home for lunch and died in that house. And really, I think they had like 3 or 4 of her classes in the afternoon. Nobody ever said a word that she never came back. Finally, somebody said, Mrs. Foster never came back to school. They went over and they found her. But that was one of our high school stories we told that was true. So that house, and I think this is the one when they asked me of the 5. They said, which one do you like best? And I said, how about this one? I like this one. This is a train wreck just south of Durango, Denver and Rio Grande. And I'm going to show you another picture a little later of this one taken farther away, and I'll give you a sense of really what this wreck was about. And I kind of like this one. If I had to say where this was, it would be pretty close to across the road from Home Depot, up along the side of the mountain there on the would be, I guess, the east side of the highway, where the train would run as it's heading towards Wilson Gulch on its way to Points East, Ignacio, and Chama and Alamosa. So anyway, that one, I said, yeah, that would be okay. They wrote me back. And they said, no, we got any others? And then I said, well, how about the one of the girls at Electra, the Rite of Spring one by Dr. Oshner. They said, yeah, that's fine. I mean, like within minutes, they wrote, yeah, that one will be fine. I think they knew they wanted that one from the very beginning. That was the one they wanted. They liked it. They knew it grabbed attention. They thought, well, and they're all about, selling more books. I think they felt like people walking through a bookstore might turn their head and look at that one before they would some of these other pictures. So that's the one they wanted. And this is the one I really wanted. I just liked it. I knew nobody had seen this one but a few people, because it was a nitric negative that was stored in our refrigerator or freezer here that Larry Bollinger and I finally pulled out of the freezer and scanned. And it's this one taken at the fairgrounds in 1917, a track meet. And it's clear. The people are easy to see, and it's a kind of an action picture. And the kid is pole vaulting into sand or sawdust. It's like, that had to be dangerous. And I love this picture. I just thought, that's going to be my picture. And they didn't want it, so it is what it is. I put it in the book, and I don't regret that they picked the other one, but I just really like this picture. Okay. Oh, they did it again. I can do it. I can. I'll get it. Oh, I got it, Susan. So this is the gentleman, Dr. Oshner, that took the cover photo, and he was a physician here. He came in, I want to say 1902 from Telluride. He lived in the East and went to medical school. Came to Telluride, and then came to Durango, and he operated 3 hospitals over the years, and he was really a good physician from everything I've heard. He had some hobbies that were expensive, and Charlie D. Fernando told me this doctor was not known for doing a lot of charity work. He wanted the money, and I know why he wanted the money, because he had expensive hobbies. Photography was expensive. He did all his own development. In fact, his obituary said he pioneered color photography. I don't know. We don't see much of that of his, but he was really good. He's also an expert marksman. He's a big game hunter. He won in Austria, won the national pistol shooting championship, and then won the American pistol shooting championship. And he was just, and he had a gun range. I can't remember what his address was, but it was not too far from the Gable House, which is one of his hospitals. And he had a gun range under his house. And then he also was really into music. He played in a string quartet in Telluride before he came to Durango. So he was a good musician, but he also had a huge collection of music, operatic and symphonic music records, I guess. And so he was kind of a little bit of a Renaissance man, but he took a lot. He took pictures were really taking photos was really his forte, and I'll show you some of them. I was going to say something. I have a family connection. So he had the Gable House was one of his hospitals, and my mom, who's here today, she's 96. He delivered her at the Gable House. He was the attending physician when my mom was born, and so and then I was just talking to my mom this week. I was kind of hoping she wouldn't remember who delivered her. So I said, well, why not, Mom? You were there, weren't you? But I never got a chance. She knew he delivered her. And so she said, Ed, you knew he did his first perforated ulcer surgery on your grandfather. I said, no, really? He said, yeah. When my grandfather was like in his early 20s, he had a perforated ulcer. And that was a huge thing back in the early 20s. And you typically could possibly die, but they could do surgery. And Dr. Oshner did the first one and told him that, he had watched his brother do one. So he felt like he could. Apparently he did, and it worked out good. But my grandfather was in the hospital for weeks and weeks because they really couldn't feed him right well because of this ulcers. They had to do some other things. And he was there, and so my grandfather started following him around on rounds and go with him to look at patients. And this is when my grandfather was in his mid-20s, and he wasn't married yet. And apparently they got along really good. And my grandfather showed a lot of interest, and he asked good questions. And one day, Dr. Oshner said, Melvin, what would you think about maybe going to medical school and coming back here and practicing with me? And my grandfather said, well, I'd like to, but I don't think I can get in. I've only had a third grade education, which was true. My grandfather, he lost his parents very young and worked on a farm and didn't have a lot of education, but he was a self-taught man, and he was a very successful farmer. And but anyway, he obviously wasn't going to go to medical school. All right, this is one of Oshner's taken. There's Hermosa Cliffs in the background. That's an orchard. We think probably close to Hermosa. Well, that may not be Hermosa Cliffs, but this is an orchard at Hermosa. And he took that picture. It's kind of cool. I took this one, same kids, probably same time. Those do look like the Hermosa Cliffs there. But he developed them all, took them and developed them all, and printed them. And there's a lot of Oshner pictures around. These are just a few that the museum has. This is one. This is where Needles Country Store is today. And he took that one in the winter, and it's eye-catching. This is Electra. This is called something screen. He would name a lot. He'd take pictures, and he would show them he showed pictures in England, Canada, France, and the United States. And he was really world renowned for some of his pictures. And oh yeah, Nature Screen, it says at the bottom. And it says carbon, which is a method of developing pictures that was pretty sophisticated for its day, but he developed his own pictures, and he had signed it. That picture I showed of Dr. Oshner, that's the only known picture of him that is out there. Nobody really has another picture of him. This is one of his, but he took unusual pictures. The cover of this book is any indication. It's just kind of just scratches the surface of what this guy some of the weird, kind of, not weird, it's kind of the differentness that this guy would use to take pictures. This is one I did not consider for the museum. I mean, not the book cover. I did not consider this one. That lady's holding the fiddle, and we know who the woman on the right is, and we know who the young girl is, because the young girl, as an adult, donated these pictures to the museum. Her name was Nancy Camp Neal, and her mother was Lola Richardson. And we don't know who the lady was on the left. But that, he staged that. We think that was at Cascade Falls up the valley. And here's one in color that he did. Also, I did not consider this one for the cover. And that's Mrs. Richardson again. And, this just another Ochsner picture. Pretty unique. Definitely interesting. Okay, so that's the Ochsner stuff. I do want to show you guys some pictures that I had on standby to use if they were if my other pictures were turned down. And initially I thought I'd get some pictures turned down, but Larry Bollinger did such a great job. Everyone I sent them, they took. And this one is just one. Probably one main reason I didn't use this one is it's a little blurred. But this is the old fire station. Is that 10th Street? I forget. Ask Charlie DeFernand, I'll tell you. But see that wood building up there with the false front. It says Antlers something. Antlers Restaurant is what it was, and that's at the corner. That's at the corner, and that's where City Hall is today. Durango City Hall. That's exactly where it was, and that's why they own this property. And that really where this building is, where this fire engine is coming out, is really basically where the parking lot is to be. But I wanted to tell you what year that one was thinking. Like, I had it written down somewhere. Yeah, 18. That was very early. In fact, I think that was before the fire of 1889. So it's probably 1887, 1886, somewhere in there. So didn't quite, and you can see how damaged this picture is. See the cracks and the stains and the splotches and even the contrast that could be fixed. You can make things that look really nice on one side of the picture. You could fix the contrast on the other side to kind of match and look like really how it looked when it was first developed and printed. This is Durango Novelty Works, another one that's faded out, but we could have made this one look great if we and wanted to. And a lot of these pictures, I don't know a lot about them because I had 220 pictures to write captions on. I had a lot of research. If I wasn't going to use a picture, I wouldn't have spent a heck of a lot of time doing a lot of research. So this one, this picture was taken at 126 West 8th Street in Durango. And this one was taken in 1912. The Durango Novelty Works was basically an auto sales garage. They sold autos and it was a garage. And I think back when it first opened in around 1906, cars were just considered a novelty. And that's maybe why they called it just a Novelty Works. I don't know. But here's what this place, what it looks like today. And that's the building. And that's on 8th Street. That's narrow gauge street to the left. And you can almost see Appearance Peak at the very corner there. So that's what it looks like today. This is another track picture. I didn't need to probably use 2 track pictures from 1917. Plus, it was a little out of focus, and that's the way it was printed. We weren't going to try to fix that, but it was kind of interesting to see how they ran track meets up at the fairgrounds in the early 1900s. These kids running, and Animas Mountain and Hermosa Cliff, the Hermosa Cliff Mountain are pretty prominent. You always know exactly what you're looking at, where you're looking. Anybody want to guess where this one was taken? It probably would be hard. But if you were there standing there today, you'd be looking at Buckley Park on the left. Ferris wheel, they had carnivals there, and this is taken in the mid 1920s. You see that building that says Goodyear Service Station down there? That was that's where Model Tire Store was, and now it's some kind of exercise place. Most people probably know what that is. But anyway, that's where Buckley Park is. And they were getting ready for a parade at that time. So we figured this was probably, it was before the Spanish Trails Fiesta started in the 30s. So it's probably a 4th of July thing. And if you look right through the Ferris wheel on the right-hand side of the lower part of the Ferris wheel, you see the clock tower to the county courthouse. And part of that clock tower is in the museum today. You have to walk up a step partially upstairs, and you can see part of that clock tower. So I like that photo. Also, you can see it has not been fixed at all. This is just another train wreck. I can't tell you much about it. I had a lot of train wrecks around here. I didn't do any research because I decided not to use this one, but it's different than any of the other train wrecks that are in the book. And so I can't tell you much, but it's interesting. And remember I showed you those guys that for the cover picture that were sitting on a wrecked train on the hillside? Well, that's it. I don't know if you can see my pointer. I don't know if this pointer works. Maybe it does, but anyway, that's where they were sitting, right there on that. But you can see all where the train, there was 2 engines on this train. It was just south of Durango, and they just rolled off the side of the hill. And that was taken by Goner. And he was an early, well-known photographer of Durango. Took some of the best iconic pictures of early Durango you'd ever want to see. Goner was an amazing photographer. This one was taken somewhere in the county. There were 3 main places in the county where they would ship sheep out of. You know, the county actually, when the county was first started, the sheep outnumbered people 11,800 to 4,600. So there's a lot more sheep in the county when it was first started. But this was taken around 1924 at one of the railheads, and there was one at Hermosa, there was one at Arbalise, and there's one at Hesperus. And we don't know exactly where this one was taken. And I did put a very similar picture to this in the book, but it was kind of cool to see this little kid putting sheep through that sheep dip trough to take care of parasites. They'd do that before they would ship the sheep. And I was trying, that was pretty much it on that picture. But I love that picture, especially because of that kid. And I love kids with animals. I don't know, I just like pictures with kids and animals. This is taken in 1957 fair, and just a classic 1950s clothes these kids wore, these rural kids wore. The kid's so proud of his pig, and considered that one, didn't use it, but I did use some other ones from the county fair. This was taken out on the Florida Mesa. The Eureka Grange gave us a bunch of pictures. And so Eureka Grange was located out on Florida Mesa. So obviously this was a sheep on the Florida Mesa, and probably the 4-H, and kids were showing their livestock. I like that one. And I like this one, just thought it was cute. Little black sheep getting fed by hand. And this is all, this was probably taken, these 2 last ones, the sheep ones, were taken in 1952. And so that, and here's another one I considered, and it's kind of hard to see, not great, but people really need to realize what the smelter meant to this town. Durango was called Smelter Mountain, and it wasn't just the town, it was all of La Plata County. And that's why it's, you know, key to the whole county is so many people, including my grandfather, came here to work in the smelter. And we could have fixed this one up, made it really look more clear, but it's you know, that's because I had already put one in of the smelter. I didn't want to use the second one, but it was quite the operation back in the day. So we didn't do too much on that. That one was taken in 1925. Now this one, we think this was taken out by old Fort Lewis somewhere. It's the Pickwick Stages, and I just liked it because it's an old bus just parked there, and some guy was trying to look underneath to check something. But I noticed it says across the top of where these Pickwick Stages were. It says New York, Chicago, St. Louis, Kansas City, Denver, San Diego, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Portland, and I think the last one was Breen. So I think this was taken in Breen. No, I don't know what the last city was, but I like that picture, didn't use it. This one, I used a couple pictures of downtown, and this was taken in the 700 block of downtown on the west side, and it was the businesses were Porter Coal and another coal company. There was Porter Coal, and then there was La Plata Coal and Coke Company. So main businesses of La Plata County back in the day, but also Pruitt & Pruitt was an insurer. Of course, another major industry in Durango back in the day, the Bijou Liquors. We had no lack of liquor stores in Durango then. And then Interstate Investment, which was real estate and insurance and loan company. And so that was an interesting picture that could have used, but I had to do a little bit more research on it, but didn't use it. Now this one has been considered one of the finest panoramic photos ever taken in the city of Durango. And the reason I say that is because I consider it that because I took it. But I took this in 1974. I got a new camera and I just went around taking some pictures. And I have, almost all the pictures of the old fairgrounds are taken from Riverview or College Hill, looking down on it. And they're really, I could never find any looking to the east. And I had one, I took it. And this was actually in the book. Of course, this is the color version. And that's what the fairgrounds looked like back in 1974. And you still see the water tower up at Fort Lewis. And that's, of course, what they call Chapman Hill. Today, I used to call it Calico Hill when I taught ski lessons there. And then it became, before that was 3rd Avenue ski area. I took this one after the 1974 fire downtown. Another one I took, I don't know, it's another color, didn't put it in, but showed some of the devastation of that whole block. That's where the Kiva was, we saw in the earlier picture. I took this one. Nope. And one of my another kid I first knew in 1st grade, Tom Necky, is sitting there. This guy's name is Philip Luz. I think that's my friend John Beck. It's hard to remember, but he always wore his jean jacket. So I think that was John. I don't know who that guy was. He's just some random guy sitting on a roof, I think. But he wasn't, he was kind of bored by that fire, I think. But anyway, I took that picture. I thought about using it, didn't. And here's my final picture to show you. This one was in the Herald a few months back. And this is kind of, can show you from the air, taken by a guy named Roland, major photographer in the 20s in Durango, from an airplane, one of the earliest airplanes. But you can see the Emerson Parks Bridge, which some people still think of as the 32nd Street Bridge right there. And, City Market would be right here. But right here, right up here is Animas School. And the interesting thing about this picture is that it looks very rural for the 1920s. And Animas City had a vibrant downtown business area. But after Durango came in, businesses started leaving and it got reclaimed for agriculture. So they started farming again in Animas City. And in the 1920s, it was more rural. And then eventually by 1948, it got absorbed and annexed into Durango. So that's that's my presentation. I'll just leave you with one little quote, it's a little bit of a paraphrase, and it's from Martin Luther King Jr. He said, "We don't make history, history makes us." And I think that's a great quote, and I think it's very apropos, especially coming from a guy who made a lot of history. So thank you for coming. I'll come downstairs if there's any any questions, or if you want me to sign my name or something to a book, I'll do that. Whatever. What else, Susan? Anything?
Okay, I'm checking for questions. If you have a question, go ahead and type it in the Q&A. We've got some comments that I will thank you all, and I will pass those on to Ed and make sure that that he gets them. I'm going to do some quick shameless self-promotion. Ed talked a lot about our Past Perfect database, and if that piqued your interest, you can get online access to some over 14,000 photos if and only if you are a member of the La Plata County Historical Society. So if you join, and you can join online, we'll send you your membership email that has a link to the online database and the password. So you can look through all these pictures that Ed is sharing. It can be kind of tricky sometimes to use, like Ed mentioned. We had 30 years of cataloging, and some of it was done real quick, but we are correcting and updating and adding images every week. So become a member. We'd love to have you. It would mean so much to us, and get access to the database and share our pictures. So let's see. It is busy this summer. Lots of people are coming to visit the museum, and today, as we're Zooming, the Joy Cabin is finally getting a new roof. We've been worried about it for a couple years, but now they're working on it. They started early this morning, and hopefully will be done today. We're posting some photos on our social media. And I want to say this project is funded in part by the Methodist Thrift Store and the City of Durango's Lodgers Tax Arts and Culture Fund in the Durango Creative District. And on that kind of the same topic, next month, our second Saturday seminar series is going to be Charlie DiFerdinando, who is the one who lovingly rebuilt that cabin at its present location on the museum grounds. He's going to talk about the history of the cabin. We might even try a location shot. Who knows? We'll see how the weather goes. You can sign up now on the events page of our website. It's got all the time, and it's second Saturday in August at 1 p.m. and all the details are on there, and sign up there. Sunday, July 28th is going to be the third annual ice cream social at Dr. Oshner's hospital, now called the Gable House, at 805 East 5th Avenue. It'll be from 1 to 3, and all proceeds benefit the Animas Museum. They usually have some great ice cream, so come on by. Any more questions? We've got some thank yous. And we've got a question for Ed. We love your unique tone and wonderful descriptions for this webinar. Thanks so much for your hard work. What events or people got you interested in photography?
Oh, gosh. Well, actually, when I was in college, my friend Norval Pollard was the sports editor at the Durango Herald, and he kind of gave me a job as a stringer taking pictures for the newspaper when I was in college for the sports. And that just the fact that I started saw what it took to how it's not easy to take good pictures, especially back then. Might be a little easier now, but back then, and I think I really kind of piqued my interest when Norval gave me that job to take pictures for the Durango Herald. Then he let me write a couple stories. Maybe that's how I got my writing start too. But he kind of mentored me too in writing. He's really good.
All right, we got a lot of thank you. And I'm going to share all your comments with Ed. And again, if you need to get the book, Maria's Bookshop's got them. Arcadia Publishing will have links in the email that'll go out tomorrow. And I think that's it. So thank you so much, Ed, for sharing all your knowledge and your experience with us. We're going to head downstairs and sign books and answer questions down there. Have a great weekend. Thank you for joining us. If you want to see continued programming like this, join us or hit that donate button on our website, and we will appreciate everything. So stay cool, and we'll see you next month. Thanks.
Thank you.